And of course, we are here on a Wednesday, which means it is Dolphin time. And we'll be jumping in to our story with the LeMoyne College Dolphins in just a moment inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', located on 201 7th North Street. We call it the CNY Snack Capital, and you can make your way over to Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, all throughout the week. With that being said, on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Dolphin Time, featuring AD and DT every first and third Wednesday with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, including today, we feature the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni in what we call Dolphin Dive. And back on the show, we have the opportunity to speak with pitcher Laura Bennett and first base Mckenzie Bergdoll of the LeMoyne College softball team in their first season as a Division I program. In hour number 2, we have an interesting piece that we're going to be doing as well at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. My father practiced law for over 40 years and has recently retired. He's taken a look at the ACC grant of rights to see if there's any legality issues to that with Florida State and Clemson. So we'll be getting into that in hour number 2. So here in hour number 1, as I said, very happy to welcome both of these wonderful student athletes. We have Laura Bennett and Mckenzie Bergdoll here with us, picture in picture, and them with an awesome kind of note behind here that says, appreciate your family and family with the PH for the Dolphins. Ladies, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So for me, this was, I think it was, about a year ago that I had you both on the show as well. And we had the opportunity to speak on the season, a little bit different, though, with NCAA Division II and now NCAA Division I. Different in a way, but not different, because your coach, Tracy Roman, would have you guys on the road, whatever season it may be, and would have you playing up against all different types of competition. So do you see a difference? Does it feel drastically different? Or do you think seasons like last season maybe help prepare you because of the level of competition you faced?
I would say we were definitely prepared in some ways. Every full season we pretty much play only Division One competition.
Yeah.
Teams like Syracuse, Colgate, Cornell, we play them pretty consistently almost every year. But I think we've definitely seen a few changes. Some of the biggest differences that I've seen is the way these teams consistently hit and the way that they run, like stealing bases. I've seen a big difference actually from Division Two to Division One, believe it or not. So.
Laura, for you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think we were definitely prepared in the travel aspect, but I definitely think one of the biggest changes is just the speed overall of the game. It's a little bit faster this year than we're used to, but
So when you look at it from the pitching mound itself, Laura, you've been in, people typically call you LB, keep it simple and use those initials. You've had a lot of respect, at least from my point of view, of what you've done on the mound and how you've helped to lead this team, and a team that's had to lean on you a lot, especially last year with different injuries and different things going on. What can you say about your career and the fact that you have really been somebody that this team as a whole has looked to in a lot of situations and made you a leader? I mean, you've been asked to do a lot over your career. Just what that seat has been like for you.
um honestly, it I filled that role a little bit in high school too, so in a way it just kept us continuing that way. But I like being there for the team. I feel like a lot of it comes from trust. I trust my defense. I trust my hitters to be there and back me up too. So I'm proud to be able to lead this team the way I can, and hopefully they take me and we can go somewhere far this year.
Mckenzie, for you playing first base, like you said, you've seen some changes. You both talked about the speed of the game. You've talked about stolen bases and different things that are happening. What has the position of first base meant for you? Because I know in your career, in your time growing up, you've played different positions. Is playing first base, has it really kind of nestled in as your favorite position, or what can you say about first base?
That's a good question. So growing up, I was actually primarily a pitcher. All my life, my mom was a pitcher in college. So I grew up as a pitcher. As time went on, I had a lot of injuries from it, whether it was my rotator cuff, I had a lot of lower back issues. So ultimately, that I had to kind of decide where I would, feel my best. And I did like to hit as well. And if my best opportunity was to reduce injury, if I wasn't a pitcher and maybe playing the field so that I could hit as well, I think that was benefiting me the most. I think as I grew older, I think my love for pitching kind of started to fade, and I think that was mostly due to injuries, like I said. But I did play a little bit of third base when I was very young, but in high school and travel ball, when I was getting recruited, I was primarily at first base as well. Fell in love with being able to play the field and hit for sure. I love hitting too. So
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, going through that change over time and now, being in this position and loving to hit, what can you say about that aspect of it in Division One? What's the difference for you? Are you feeling a difference? Are you seeing a difference from pitchers? Is the speed again a little bit different for you? I mean, what are you noticing when you're standing there at the plate so far in Division One?
So for me, and I think I could speak for some of the team as well, because we do obviously converse about, the pitching we're seeing as opposed to the NE10 and things like that. I can honestly say I have not seen a huge difference in pitching. We just saw a really good two really good pitchers this past weekend at St. Francis. But there was really good pitching in NE10 as well. I think these pitchers move the ball a little bit better as far as, getting hitters to chase. I think they've definitely been able to get hitters to chase a lot more. But as far as speed, I wouldn't say I see a huge difference. But again, we still just started in conference play, so that could also change. But I think it's relatively similar, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's I think at the end of the day, softball, right? So there's those mechanics and those different things you're gonna learn, but you're gonna face different competition that tries to do things differently. Laura, have you changed anything about your game? Has anything evolved in these last few months for you?
Honestly, for me, no, not really. Growing up and through the game, I've learned to keep composure. That's the biggest thing for a pitcher, composure, calmness, keep it all together. And I think like a pitcher can throw hard, but your biggest assets like spin and movement. And so, I work a little bit on getting the ball to spin a little bit more, a little bit faster, more revolutions. But besides that, I try to keep everything somewhat the same, but still just up my training a little bit more, focus a little more on training, focus a little more on spin, get a little more stronger in the legs. But
For you, Laura, when you look at the fact that, I mean, like I said before, you've been asked to do a lot of things, you've been entrusted with a lot with this team. The rest of the pitching staff, what can you say about some people that have elevated themselves, some different things that maybe you've seen helping mentor and whatnot? What can you say about the rest of the pitchers that we have? Because I know in the future there's a lot that Tracy's doing recruiting wise, but in the here and now, what do you see from the pitching staff?
um, Michaela's definitely upped her game. She is a senior though. Rose is working a lot, and I'm proud of her. She's put a lot of time in. She's put a lot of effort in. We have a freshman this year, Ariana, and she has a lot of potential. So I'm excited to see where she'll go as long as like they keep working. I think they'll be pretty good.
And Mckenzie, for you out there in the field, you all have to communicate. You have to trust each other. So, what can you say about the improvement in communication? And if anyone out there with you when you're fielding, if you feel like you've almost got a sixth sense for each other now and you almost don't even have to say anything?
Absolutely. That's honestly what I love about my infield right now. We're all upperclassmen. Our second baseman's a senior, shortstop is a junior, and then our third baseman is a senior as well. So we've been on the field together these past 2 years, especially, and also some of my junior year, so 2 years ago. And it's great. It's truly great. Rinaldi, she can easily be swapped out at second. Frankie's, she's our pretty much veteran third baseman. We're all super close knit. We talk every day. We see each other every day at practice. I think we have just grown such strong bonds with each other, and we're not afraid to, speak up and ask questions to each other, and it's great. I love our infield, I love our outfield, and I love this team. So
Here on this edition of Dolphin Dive, live this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with LeMoyne College and the Dolphins. We're here with Laura Bennett and Mckenzie Bergdoll of the LeMoyne softball team. One of the promises that Bob Beretta, the athletics director, had made and had spoken with me about a long time ago was that he felt the need for a press box at the softball field. He wanted to see that. He wanted there to be an upgrade and an addition there. We've seen it come in. We've seen it happen. I had the opportunity to go out once it was all set in place to go and check it out a little bit. What can you say about that? The fact that essentially phase one of your athletics director, when he came in, he said, there's three things I want to do. I want to have a concession and restroom stand at Ted Grant Field. I want to change the dugouts for the baseball field, and I want to put a press box in the softball field. What does that mean to you to be a part of that first wave, that first phase of construction? And what do you think about having it there on the field? And I'll start with you, Mckenzie.
it's exciting. It's definitely exciting. It can get a little cold up here, so I know for those who will be in the press box, they will be very thankful. But our field was already nice as it is. This just adds, a little cherry on top. It looks great. We're excited to have it. I think that we've had a little, we've had some issues with announcing and speaker systems, so hopefully, this will be an upgrade for that. But no, it's nice because we feel important, and it's definitely it shows like the transition is a big deal, and with that comes great things. So we're excited to have it, and we're thankful for it. So
Laura?
Yeah, we're definitely very grateful, especially to have someone like Barbaretta backing us up and being there and showing us and leading us the way to transitioning. We were all very excited the day it came in. We were like, oh my gosh, a press box, and it's something new and exciting. And like Mackenzie said, it's definitely paving the way to do some great things. So we're excited. We're very grateful. And yeah.
There was a day last season that I came out to see y'all play, and it was an awesome. It was the game where, you're going up. I'm sure you remember this clearly, but it was a game of a million runs and then a million runs on your side, and that back and forth game. It was extremely exciting. The weather was immaculate as far as blue sky and sun, and I think it was 31 degrees outside. So, I mean, you guys get to play in a lot of different places. You obviously start the season off on the road. What can you say to that effect of it? Because there's softball teams that are always playing in, 65, 70, 80 degree weather. And then there's your team that you could play in the 30s, you could play in the 70s. Does any of that matter to you at all at this time? Is it just kind of ice water in your veins and you're used to it? Laura, I'll start with you.
Um, I think we're definitely used to it. We're taught it's just uncontrollable. You have to just deal with it. There's no sense in like focusing on it. But it does get cold some days, and just keep moving, keep jumping up and down the dugout, do whatever you gotta do. And it definitely does take a little bit extra out of you, but it's something you can't really focus and spend too much energy on.
Mckenzie?
yeah, I know our coach always says don't play to the weather, and we actually have to face that this week. We're going to Merrimack, and it's going to be 30 and windy. So we just gotta get those ear warmers out, those hand warmers, and just do our thing. Can't really do anything about it. So, just gotta play through it, and just remember that we're not the only team that has to do it. So it's okay. We'll get through it.
Is there anything that you miss about the NE10? Is there any rivalry you felt like you formed? Any place you like to go inside of the NE10 that going into the transition to Division One and the NEC, you kind of think about and say, oh, I wish we could still play them, or I wish we could go there. Do you have any of those nostalgic moments from the NE10? Mckenzie, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. I I've been doing this so I played Any 10 for 4 years, right? So we know those teams. We know who's a good match. Like we definitely miss those teams because we almost know what to expect in a way.
Yeah.
Um, I know one of my favorite facilities to go to was Adelphi. I loved their field. Their facilities were great. And they're a great competition. Adelphi, Pace, Franklin Pierce, like those were always super fun games to play because they're always, the top rated. We're usually in the middle of the pack, but it was always a dogfight every single series, and it was super fun. But that doesn't take anything away from NEC. I mean, NEC is great. Obviously, we're new to this, but I think because, me and Laura, especially being fifth years, like we were used to the Any 10 for 4 years. Um, but, change is good. But there's definitely still things that we miss for sure.
Laura.
Um, yeah, I mean, we did fairly well last year in the Any 10, so it's kind of like, oh, what could we have done this year? But like Mckenzie, I enjoyed going head to head against Delphi every year, but it's okay. I'm excited for the NEC. I'm excited to see new people. The one thing that is hard is the fact that these are new people, new players. We have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be fine. It'll be okay.
So in the world of pitching, I mean, you're there by yourself. You're just standing on a mound. Everybody's looking at you, and it's that job that you have to kind of accept the fact that you're literally on an island alone. I spoke with Jordan Goldman of the LeMoyne baseball team, and we spoke about that, the fact of just wanting to embracing that risk, embracing being by yourself. With you for LeMoyne softball, Laura, being on that mound, you and I have talked about your successes. We've spoken about pitching in general, but for you, what's exhilarating? What's exciting? You got to be maybe a little bit crazy to be out there too. So, what is it about being on the mound that you love?
Um, I love everything about it. I really do. I fell in love with pitching at a very young age, and I knew that's what I wanted to do at a very young age. I love the competitiveness of it the most, I think. It's the fact that I have control over some things in the game. I can control the speed a little bit. I have the chance to go head to head with the hitter, and it's just something that I like. I never truly feel alone. I always have my infielders and my outfielders behind me, and so I don't truly feel alone. If I ever feel like really alone or really stuck, sometimes I'll like sing to myself or something, but I never feel really alone.
What song, if you were playing right now today, what
Oh.
song would you sing to yourself?
It changes day to day. Sometimes it's like a song that they play in the field. Sometimes it's just one I've had stuck in my head.
Okay.
Changes day. Keep it interesting.
I just wanted to know if it was like, hip hop, pop, country, if it was like a Broadway show. I want to know what would be your go-to to calm yourself down.
Oh gosh, I think I sang everything at this point. There are some Broadway songs I like. There are some. I'm a big fan of Frank Sinatra. Sometimes there's Frank Sinatra in there. Sometimes it's just like modern, upbeat, and sometimes there's some rap in there.
Okay.
Keep it interesting.
I like that. Mckenzie, do you have any music playing in your head at first base?
It's mostly in the box, actually.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm talking to myself. Other times yeah, I've definitely sung to myself before, for sure, in the box.
What is your music of choice?
It's typically rap.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah.
Is
Did you
there
say do I have
Yeah, do you have a favorite?
I don't know. Also, it definitely depends on the day, or it depends on the playlist, the pregame playlist. But it's usually mostly rap. So depending on the song that's stuck in my head in the moment, I will go with that one.
Yeah, I feel like music is that universal thing to calm us down. So I find it interesting to hear you guys say that because I feel like it's totally normal to use music right here in the studio before I get started with the show. Typically, I'm playing something to like get you amped up because it's like running out to be on the microphone, running out to be on the field. There's something about when you chase your dreams, music is typically involved. Before we jump into rapid fire, we're going to have some fun getting to know each other off the field. I would love Laura, for you to tell me what the best part of being Mackenzie's teammate is. Why is she a good teammate?
Oh, I this is hard because like, we've also been together for 5 years,
Yeah.
but I love her attitude. Like I just like talking to her and having her out there with me because I know if I give her a look, she's probably thinking the same thing as me.
It's very true.
Okay. So she's probably thinking this. So that thing that we were talking about before, the osmosis of you guys can read each other's minds without saying anything.
Yeah.
Mckenzie, what's your favorite part of being LB's teammate?
I would definitely say her competitiveness. Like, I know that no matter what the situation is, if she's starting, if she's coming in to close a game, I know that she will give it her all, and I'm so confident in her. I'm like the most confident in her for sure.
Yeah, and this season so far, this first season as a D1 program, you got your first victory back on February 23rd on a Friday afternoon. That game was 15-5 in Madera Beach, Florida, when you're playing a bunch of different teams, Brown, St. Bonaventure, Butler, Middle Tennessee, and you had that win over St. Bonaventure, who is a team obviously from the state of New York. That first victory, bring me into that 15-5 win, and just what you remember the most about St. Bonnie's down in Florida. Mckenzie, I'll start with you.
It was just a hitting fest. I think that day everybody's bats just woke up at the same time, and it was all about timely hitting, and it was just on that day. And I do wish that we could have, closed the door and not let St. Bonnie's get 5 runs, but it was great. I think we were all super excited because we knew what the outcome was going to be. But I think we all once we got a couple runs on the board, we were just going at it. We didn't want to stop, and I think we carried that through the whole game, and it was a good time. It was exciting. So.
Laura, your favorite memory from that first victory that will go down in history as the first win as a D1 program, just what that Bonnie's game meant to you?
It meant a lot. It was a very good team win. Just feeling like everyone was going at it was really good to feel. And honestly, it's hard to remember.
Right?
Um,
Feels so long ago.
I was injured. I got injured during that game, so I was out of it for a little bit. But it was a good team win. I liked how everyone was so excited. Like just the atmosphere around all of us was very positive, very upbeat, very energetic.
And your next victory was when you played a bunch of teams in Norfolk, Virginia, and the team that you got the victory over was Norfolk State. So them playing at home in Virginia and you winning that game 4-0. There was another opportunity there against Quinnipiac, obviously 4-3, a very close game for you guys. And you've had some of those close games. What about Norfolk State? And then to jump right from there to the fact that you went from Norfolk State and then faced off against Dover in Delaware State in Dover, Delaware, and won that series, those two games, and then Lafayette College that series as well. So in recent history here, we've seen a lot of victories come through, Norfolk State being one of them, and then 2 games against Delaware State, 2 games against Lafayette College. Laura, I'll start with you, that we've had a flurry of victories that have come in recent times here, and that in Delaware State and at Lafayette, you did not take a single loss.
Yeah, we definitely went through a really good stretch, and hopefully we can continue that. But again, it was just one of those days where everyone felt kind of on. I mean, some of those games we kind of walked into, and I personally felt like, yeah, like I think we got this. And it was all about confidence and keeping the energy up. And again, with the composure, like we had to keep composure. But really good team wins. I definitely feel like there were some close games that were a little too close for comfort, but we got through them and we got the win, so that's important.
Mckenzie, for you, looking at this recent success on the field as far as wins go, there's successes that happen and losses. There's things that this team has learned. So a 2-part question. What do you feel like the team has learned in the losses? And what are your thoughts on these recent victories?
So for the losses, I think we've kind of recognized that we keep a close game for the majority of it, and then there comes like the 6th inning, and something happens and it's kind of like a domino effect. So I think that we've learned that we need to just stay within ourselves in those moments and not, let just like an error or a run score, or two-run score, let us like knock us off our feet. So I think that's something that we've learned for sure. I think with this competition and with the losses, we know that if we had a rematch against these teams, that we can absolutely beat them. It's just little things that happen that kind of affect us negatively, but I think that we've definitely learned from those and that we will come back from them. And with the wins, we all love winning. It's just such a good feeling, and especially coming out with 4 wins and sweeping these teams in the 2-game series. It's a great feeling, and I think truly like once if we score first, I think that's like an opportunity that we all take advantage of. And we have such a good lineup. We have such a good lineup, 1 through 9. And I think once, it's all about timely hitting. And once one girl hits and, the next girl hits, and it's just like, it's contagious for sure. So we love winning. And yeah, those wins are good. They feel good. So
The leadership of your head coach, Tracy Roman, in this transition from Division II to Division I, in moments, whatever division you were in, where there's been some adversity, what can you say about Tracy as the leader of this program? Mckenzie, I'll start with you on that.
So it's actually nice. Well, for me and Laura, she's actually been here the exact same amount of time that we have been here. So it's great. I've been with her for 5 years. She's been with us for 5 years. So, I have all the confidence in her, and I think we've built such strong relationships with her. And I think that we go to her for anything. We're not afraid to ask her questions, ask her if she needs anything. She comes to us for questions, and she comes to us for leading the team and things that she's not involved with. And I think it's great, and I think that she's doing her best to navigate this Division I change. And I'm happy to go through this transition with her. So,
Laura, for you, like Mckenzie said, Tracy's been with you the whole time. You all came in new, and you've all gone through this together for the last 4+ years. Just what that means to you.
Yeah, it means a lot. Having to be able to build a relationship on and off the field, I think is the most important thing. It builds trust, it builds communication. I mean, even if one of us is just out sick with a cold or stressed about homework, she always makes sure to check in with us. And that's something that, some people may not have at other schools. But staying behind her, I trust her and her ability to lead us. And I'm also excited to be able to be here and with her through this transition.
Well, and a final note before that rapid fire piece, you finally get to come home. That's going to be happening sooner than later. You'll have this weekend at Merrimack, as you spoke about, and then on Tuesday, we'll get to see you finally at the softball complex at LeMoyne College, and you're going to be spending so much time at home from there. You have Binghamton, you have Central Connecticut State, you have FDU as well, and then even when you're out of town, you're still in the state of New York when you travel to Cornell, back home for Stonehill, and as well as Colgate and St. Peter's. And then we'll see Wagner at home, and then Syracuse is right down the road. Siena's not too far away before you head off to Connecticut. So there's going to be a lot of New York State. There's going to be a lot of home finally. What is that moment going to be like for you in here, year number 5? It's your final season. LB, you'll be on your own mound shortly.
It's exciting. It means a lot. I love being home. I don't get me wrong, like I love traveling more so to the warmer states, but it feels good to be back home. You have the people that can come and support us here that might not be able to travel as far, and we get our own music, and we have the people that we trust behind us running the press box, running the speakers, anything like that. And it just, honestly, for me, it's nice to have my own people around me.
Mckenzie, for you to know that not only will you be home in less than a week, but once you are home, you're going to be in the state of New York for the majority of the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I feel like our entire season thus far has been away. It basically has been. And home games means that, our family and loved ones get to come see us, and we get our walk-up songs, we get our pregame playlist. I think We typically have a pretty good turnout as far as fans. I love our fields, love our facilities, and yeah, I think we could use a break from traveling for sure. So I'm excited about this next month and having all these home games. It's going to be great.
That coming from Mckenzie Bergdoll, first base, and Laura Bennett, pitcher of the LeMoyne Dolphin softball team here on this edition of Dolphin Dive. It's time to play rapid fire. We're going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to go down the line and then come back, so we'll all get to ask each other a question in a succession point of view here. So I'll ask Laura. Laura, you ask Mckenzie. Mckenzie will ask me, and then we'll go back. So Laura, and it could be anything. My first question for you is we've spoken about music. I want to know about food. When you are on the road, do you have, like when you're in those southern states, is there a guilty pleasure food that you have to get when you're traveling, Laura?
When we're allowed to get with our parents, no matter where we are, I really like seafood and I really like sushi.
Good
So
choice.
that's something that I love to get.
Okay, do you have a favorite sushi roll?
Oh, I'm a big like tuna, spicy tuna. Yeah.
Okay, spicy tuna. All right, you can go ahead with your question for Mckenzie.
Well, I want to know your favorite food to get.
On the road.
It's a good question.
I try to, I'll sneak in a Reese's here and there probably. I try to stay as healthy as possible, but if there's a Reese's in front of me, I can't really say no. So I'll probably go with, Reese's.
Yeah, I think there's a rule in my house, and that is if there's Reese's in the house, I have to hide them and I have to forget about them. Because if I know that they're here, they could all be gone in a day. So,
Exactly.
all right, Mckenzie, what's your question for me?
What is your favorite sport to watch?
Oh, that's tough. I think every sport presents its own kind of excitement. So, I guess I mean I grew up playing basketball
Okay.
and March Madness I will watch. My favorite part of March Madness is the round of 64, which for those of you watching live is this Thursday and Friday. I will watch the games from noon to past midnight.
Oh
And
wow.
and I actually cover them virtually. So last year we covered north to south, east to west, the entire country, and I was up watching all these games. So yeah, I'm kind of I don't know how, but I'll watch 12 hours of basketball or 13 hours of basketball. But I mean, I would say I love the thrill of March Madness, but to go to softball for a second, the reason why well, what got me into your sport in the first place was when I saw some of the pitchers that were out there, and LB respect for the work that you do. And Mckenzie, I know you've had a history with it as well. There's a way that you will see a softball pitcher on the mound pitch. And I'll never forget the first time I saw it. I forgot exactly who it was, but the ball left her hand, went into the glove, and I was like, did it travel through space and time? Like I didn't see it go, but and I think that kind of hit me. And then in college, I had to take I didn't have to take it. I took an elective coaching course, and we had to learn how to play softball. We had to learn the mechanics of it. So
Okay.
softball and basketball were the two sports that our teacher chose because she was a softball coach. And so I can honestly say that my experience with your sport has been fun, and that I think there's just something unique and special about it. And I think there's something special about your team. Tracy is an incredible human being, and the way she's treated me in the last many years has been huge. And then getting to see you guys grow and evolve, and how much you care about each other when you go to a game and you see how you guys interact with each other. So I would answer the question by telling you, yes, I watch March Madness, but I would finish the question by telling everybody to get to the softball complex at LeMoyne.
Good answer.
Thank you. So my question back to you, Mckenzie. If okay, let's go to your team, because I want to. We talked about. I just said about how you guys interact with each other. This is a three-part question, and it's a road trip question.
Wow. Okay.
You're going cross country. You're going from here to. Let's not go to California. People always do it. Let's go to Oregon. So you're going from here to Oregon. And as you're going across the country, I need three teammates in the car to do these things. Which teammate do you trust to drive the entire way? Which team do you try, or which team member do you trust to drive the entire way? Which one of your teammates has the aux that you trust with all of the music? And which teammate do you trust to change a tire if something happens?
Okay, so change a tire is Frankie all day.
Okay.
She knows how to change a tire. She's very innovative. She knows how to do all those things.
Okay.
To drive, who do I trust to drive? Honestly, I want to say Brooke. For some reason, I would trust Brooke to drive.
Laura agrees. Okay.
And for Ox, I would like probably choose myself. Or maybe, yeah, I'd probably choose myself. Or
Maybe Green.
yeah, or maybe Ariana for Ox.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. What do you think would be the first song, or what is the last song that you listened to in the car, maybe?
For me, I mean, I could actually check, but it's probably something Drake, if I had to imagine.
Well, Mckenzie, you didn't know this, but that was the correct answer. So,
Oh,
so now you can go ahead and ask Laura a question.
okay. Laura, what was your favorite field or facility that we traveled to? If you can remember in all of our 5 years, which one was your favorite? Or if you want to name a few, you can.
Um, the stadium in Georgia was pretty cool.
That was cool. Yeah.
That was pretty cool, and I, man, I love Adelphi's field,
Same.
but those two are pretty good.
Yeah.
I like the stadium in Georgia.
Okay. All right, LB, you get the final question here. You get to ask me something.
If you could do any other profession, what would it be?
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you asked that because there are other things that are on my mind that I'm working toward. So, two things that I absolutely love. I love making people laugh, and I love telling stories. So, comedy, which is inside of the show in a bunch of different ways. Every Friday we do the annoying moment of the week, which allows me to go off about something in a fun way. But I would say stand-up comedy and screenwriting for a movie are two things that I would love to do and have every intent to work on, for
That's
sure.
very cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So with that being said, Laura Bennett, Mckenzie Bergdoll of the LeMoyne Dolphins softball team, our pitcher LB, our first baseman Mckenzie, and definitely appreciate you both for all the work that you've done. I'm happy that you decided to hang out at LeMoyne for a fifth year, and obviously good luck and God bless on the road against Merrimack, and then we'll see you back at home with Binghamton being the first home contest that you'll have for your first D1 season. So Laura, Mckenzie, thank you for your time, and my best to you and the entire softball team.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
having us.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. That coming here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, and always appreciate being here with you. I mean, this is a great time to my answer because it's the only time we got. You know what I mean? It's the only time we got, and I genuinely want to thank Laura Bennett and Mckenzie Bergdoll because like they said, they've been here the whole time. Tracy's been here. They've been a big part of building this program at LeMoyne for softball, and I will tell you folks, get yourself out to a game. Number one, I mean, honestly, last year it was so much. I'm probably never going to forget that game. And that game I was talking about where it was like 30 degrees outside and it was just like a ton of runs and it was beautiful. I mean, the sky was blue. It was just cold. And now, I mean, the press box is there. So, that changes things and adds to it. But it was just a great atmosphere. Like, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change being there when it was cold. I wouldn't change, watching this team compete. There's something about, and I say this all the time on the show, but it's the only thing I know. You go for the people. You go for the people. Why do you think we do these shows with the student athletes and the coaches? I want you to get to know who they are, not just their wins and losses and look at them on a stat sheet, but to actually know these people, to know who they are, what makes them tick, what their why is, why they do what they do, why certain things matter to them. Because to me, when you go to a game, I want you to know that. I want you to know that Mckenzie likes Reese's and can't keep them in the house. I want you to know that's, LB, the way that, like she said, I'm not on an island when I'm out there being a pitcher because I got all my teammates with me, and that, I sing to myself, and I might sing a rap song, or I might sing, a song from a Broadway show. I think those things are really cool to know, and Mckenzie's history and the fact that her mom played. Like, there's just this opportunity to really get to know people, and I love doing it. So to Laura and Mckenzie, thank you again, because I know they've been a part of the show before, and I'm happy to have you back, and I look forward to seeing you at home. It's a long road. When you're a northern team, you spend a lot of time on the road, and that can get trying. It can get tiring, right? But they've weathered the storm, and they've done some good things, and they've had some success recently. Sweeping Delaware State in a 2-game series and sweeping Lafayette in a 2-game series. And now they have an opportunity to go to Merrimack and get some victories Saturday and Sunday, and then come back home, and they'll face off against Binghamton, and then they'll go on from there, Central Connecticut State, and so on and so forth. A lot of good softball that's going to be seen, and I look forward to you coming out and seeing them. And I love the fans that came out last year. It was awesome. It was great to see people and to have that passion and that support. And they weathered it too. We were all outside in 30-degree weather, and, it wasn't snowing. It was just cold. And, everybody came out and got their blankets and sat in their chairs and watched this game. And, of course, I hope the weather's, in the 50s or 60s and 70s maybe. But, the thing that I love about this team is again, it's the people. And Tracy is just a wonderful, wonderful asset to LeMoyne College, in my opinion. And I think that her student athletes are wonderful as well. And that's why I'm happy you got to spend some time with Laura and Mckenzie today in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora and what we like to call the Dolphin Dive. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. We will talk about, we're going to stay in the NEC and the conference that LeMoyne is in. We're going to discuss the fact that yet again in the NCAA tournament for men's basketball, the NEC strikes. We'll talk about it.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacted the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, located for you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is the sports card shop for you to go to. Make sure you get over there 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. They're constantly bringing in product from packs to boxes to singles and graded cards. You never know what's going to show up in the showcases at GG Cards and Breaks. That's why you got to go in. You got to go in today. And you probably got to go in tomorrow, or at least this weekend, to see what they have. Sports-wise, they have football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, all sport, AEW. And then in the trading card worlds, of course, they have your Pokemon, and they have the Disney Lorcana, all the series of the Disney Lorcana while supplies last. When Into the Inklands came out, the third piece of Disney Lorcana, they had that the moment that you could buy it, it was out there at their store. So make sure you head out to GG Cards and Breaks, always bringing new people into the hobby with their customer service, their care, and all of the awesome things that they bring in. And for somebody like me who's been collecting all my life, they've become home. So make sure you head out to GG Cards and Breaks today. We appreciate everybody that has. 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. And of course, you can get there Monday through Saturday once again from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, let's talk about this Wagner Seahawks team, folks. The Wagner Seahawks. Man, this team, 7 players. That's it. 7 players. That's what they have. Not a Jim Boeheim, I have 14 and I'm going to play 7. 7 players on this team for Wagner, and they have navigated. They were the 6th seed in the NEC tournament that the LeMoyne men's basketball team played in for the first time ever this season. Wagner was the 6th seed. They beat the 3 seed, the 2 seed, and the 1 seed to get their first automatic bid to the NCAA tournament since 2003. So over 20 years, 21 years ago, that's my favorite number, 21 years ago, they were in the NCAA tournament. And now 21 years later, they're back in the NCAA tournament. So what have they done in the NCAA tournament since they've come back? Oh, that's a great question for you to ask. What they did was they won in the first game of this year's Division I men's basketball NCAA tournament. They won in the first game that was played, which was the first of the first 4, the first of the 4 play-in games. They won that game over Howard of the MEAC, which is ironic because Howard has a bunch of sports in the NEC as an associate member, but they're not a full member of the NEC. They're in the MEAC. And so Howard in this game surged back. They were down by 12 when my dad and I were taking a look at it, and they came all the way back. They had a chance at a 3-point shot 3 times. Their last time down on the floor, on offense, they had 3 opportunities at a 3 to tie the game. They missed every single one of them, and Wagner moves on 71-68. They get the victory in this game. So to not only come back, but to not only return, but to return 21 years later and get a victory. And now Wagner will find themselves moving on to the round of 64. But this is the issue that comes up with me that I want to discuss. That issue that I have is that Wagner should have never played a play-in game. Because what is the point of being an automatic bid team if you're not actually an automatic bid? What do I mean? Well, when you look at the automatic bids, there's 68 spots in the men's Division I NCAA tournament. Of those 68 spots, 32 are automatic bids. Those 32 automatic bids are from the 32 conferences that there are in Division I. In those 32 conferences, each of them has a conference tournament. The only one that didn't was the Ivy League, which now they have one. So whoever wins your conference tournament in men's Division I basketball will move on. Same thing with Division I, women's basketball. When you look at this and you look at the auto bids through the NCAA Division II, Division III. So you have 68 spots, 32 conference tournament champions means 32 automatic bids. Nobody else gets an automatic bid. You have to be a conference tournament champion, regardless of your record. You could have a losing record, win your conference tournament, you're in. The 36 at-large spots are teams that are chosen by the NCAA selection committee for the tournament. My issue is that an automatic bid should never, ever have to play a play-in game. Because it's a way of saying, hey, you're automatically in the tournament. Well, kind of. Oh, you made it. Sort of. The overwhelming majority of conferences will not play a play-in game when they win their conference tournament. You're probably never going to see that happen with the ACC or the SEC or the Big East or the Big 12 or the Big 10. The Pac-12, in its final year, you wouldn't have seen it with them. But you see it with the NEC, you'll see it with the MEAC, you'll see it with the Big West and the Big Sky and so on and so forth. And it's wrong. And it's wrong because, regardless of record, by definition, the last 8 teams in were the last 8 teams you chose by an at-large. It's the last team. Once the 32 are selected, those 36 spots, those last 8 spots of the 36, those are your play-in games. You can have them be a 10 seed, you can have them be an 11 seed, you can have them be a 14 seed, you can have them be a 8 seed. I don't care. But an automatic bid should be an automatic bid, not an automatic bid for some, and for others an automatic play-in to deserve the right to be in. If you win your conference tournament, you should be in the round of 64, without question. I don't care what your record is. without. Look at Kansas, for goodness sakes. Kansas has double-digit losses. They've lost to unranked teams. They got blown out by 30 to Houston. They didn't win the Big 12 tournament, and they're a 4 seed. If they're a 4 seed, then Syracuse should have been considered. And I'm not saying Syracuse should have made the tournament this year. I'm saying based on the logic of making Kansas a 4 seed, Syracuse should have been considered. And to me, it's ridiculous that we see some. I mean, Michigan State gets in the 8-9 line. They get to play a matchup like that. What did Michigan State do? They lost, 5 of their last 7 or something like that? So how is Michigan State not playing a play-in game? Your last 8 teams in should be your first 4. Your last 8 should be that first 4, those play-in games. If you're an automatic bid, you're an automatic bid. You can't, because what essentially NCAA is doing is saying, well, if you win the NEC, we don't care. If you win the MEAC, we don't care. We only care if you win these conferences. But these other conferences, yeah, you get in, but you kind of get in. So you got 2 conference champions fighting for the right to get in the round of 64, which means that there will be a conference tournament champion automatic bid that will not be in the tournament. The actual tournament of the round of 64, when things officially start off with everybody in the bracket, not trying to get into the bracket. There should be no play-in games for automatic bids. There shouldn't be. You make them a 16 seed if you want. Make them a 15. You can't make Wagner a 15 seed? Why not? You know? Because then even with Wagner winning, they're like, hey, you're a 16 seed. Go have fun. You know what I mean? So to me, just make this fair. And if you win your conference tournament, you don't have to play in to the tournament itself. Because it's not right. On any stretch of the imagination, it's not right. So do the right thing, NCAA. I know you're allergic to that sometimes, but let's just try. Maybe it'll feel good this time. So, you know, I mean, the NCAA provides a lot of opportunities, and I appreciate those. But the NCAA also functions in a world of things that are not fair and don't make any logical sense. And if we sit here idly by and say nothing about it, then we're complicit to the fact that there is special treatment. And there is special treatment. We know that. There's special treatment for certain conferences. There's special treatment for certain teams. There's special treatment for certain coaches. And yet we sit here and we pretend like there's not. Well, there is. Tom Izzo, again, the Big Ten. The Big Ten can do no wrong. They can do no wrong. No wrong. And the question that I ask you here is, if you're in the Big Ten, you're probably not saying anything because it works for you. But the Big Ten has an unfair advantage in college football. They have an unfair advantage in college basketball. Those are the 2 sports that are bringing in the most money. So if you're providing, when they're like, oh, the Big Ten's making this, the Big Ten's making that. Yeah, the Big Ten has an opportunity to share more money amongst its members because they get to make a lot more money. The Big Ten is getting more exposure. The Big Ten's getting more opportunities. So I would imagine they can spend a little bit more money when they're getting more money. When you look at the NCAA tournament and you look at the bracket, it shouldn't be what conference does the committee like this year. They haven't liked the ACC in 3 years. They've been wrong the last 2. So let's see if they're wrong again. Now, people will say, Dan, Virginia played a play-in game yesterday and they looked awful. And I would tell you, yes, they did. They absolutely looked awful. I think Syracuse would have put together a better game. I think Pittsburgh would have put together a better game. But, you know, Syracuse, I think St. John's of the Big East would have put together an actual game. But I have respect for Tony Bennett. The team had a bad night. Took them forever to score. And they lost substantially. It's sad. It is. This is also a team that's won a national championship in, the last decade? So I don't think Tony Bennett's a bad coach. I don't think Tony Bennett should be fired. You know, people look at this stuff and they lose their minds. You know, how dare Tony Bennett be out in the first round, be out in the play-in game? But it happens, right? It happens. So, I mean, Syracuse lost to a lot of teams that people scratch their heads about, and Jim Boeheim remained the coach for over a decade after those games happened. So, you know, when when we look at putting this together, this year they like the Mountain West. 10 years ago, I don't even know if they put 2 teams in from the Mountain West. Maybe they put in the champion of the conference tournament. Maybe they put in one other team. But this year, they like the Mountain West. They continue to like the Big Ten because that's just what they do. And you see like everybody this year was vulnerable. North Carolina should have fallen out of the national top 10 rankings, but they would leave them in when they would lose. They lost to 3 unranked teams in the conference of the ACC. They lost to Clemson, who was unranked at the time, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse. And they barely moved. Kansas lost to UCF, who was unranked, and I don't think they didn't move out of the top 10. Duke has had their ups and downs, their moments, right? But Duke is still regarded. So it essentially is that the committee looks, in my opinion, they look at each team and say, which ones do we like more than the other ones? I mean, that's what it feels like. Because Duke and North Carolina were safe all season long. They were safe. But Syracuse wasn't safe, and some of these other schools weren't safe. But there were schools that were safe all year long. I mean, you look at the bracket here, and you say to yourself, why do we have Florida Atlantic, who's in the American, and UAB, who's in the American, that if they both win, that they would have to go on. So if they get to the Sweet 16, they have to play each other. There's only 2 teams in the American that are in the tournament. Why couldn't you put UAB in a different bracket than in the East bracket with FAU? So if they both make it to the Sweet 16, one of them has to knock the other one out. So your entire representation of one conference is going to be knocked out. Or somebody's going to knock somebody out no matter what by the round of Sweet 16 because they're in the same bracket. You know, you look at some of this other stuff and you say to yourself, okay, like, you know, St. Mary's is a 5 seed. Gonzaga's a 5 seed. Why is Gonzaga a 5 seed? If Gonzaga struggled and St. Mary's won the conference, Gonzaga shouldn't be a 5 seed. They should be a 6. They should be a 7. Maybe they should be an 8. You know, you look at these teams that have made it this year. You look at the amount of teams that have double-digit losses and that were at-large bids with 10 or 11 losses. Back in the day, if you had 10 losses, it was almost a kiss of death. If you had 11, it was forget about it. If you had 12, it was go home. What's the question we got? So are you saying Virginia should have gotten in due to the fact they have Coach Bennett and have previously won a national championship? No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. My exact argument is that shouldn't happen. Tom Izzo's in the tournament because he's the coach of Michigan State and they like Tom Izzo. I'm not saying that Virginia should be in the tournament. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying we should not be selecting teams on anything other than what they've done that season. Not what they did last season, not who their coach is. You don't let a team in because, and it's a joke, but it's also true. It's a joke, but it's also true that I said Tom Izzo will always be in the tournament. They will always find a way to put him in the tournament. And what do? And I respect Tom Izzo. I've interviewed him. I like Tom Izzo. But Michigan State should not be in the tournament and be a 9 seed because it's like, you got to let Izzo in. And it's the same thing with any coach. So, yeah, I mean, any miscommunication that I was saying the opposite. I was saying, why would you let a team in because of their coach? Because there was the argument that I had that if Jim Boeheim was coaching this year's team and they had 10 or 11 losses, they'd probably be considered more than an Adrian Autry team because of Jim Boeheim's history. So, is that fair? No, it's not fair at all. North Carolina and Duke were protected by the NCAA selection committee, but the rest of the ACC was not protected. So when I'm looking at this bracket, I'm seeing here are the conferences we protect, here are the teams that we protect wherever they are, and here are the coaches we protect. So are you really putting together a tournament of who should be there? Are you really putting together a fair tournament? Or are you putting together a tournament that is biased based on, I like this team, I like their history, I like that coach, he might only coach a couple more years, let's get him in. How does that work out? And how is that fair? It's not. It's not fair at all. That's the issue. You should not be selecting anybody based on who you like. You should be basing it on the work that they have done. And if you're not doing it on the work that they've done, well, then shame on that for doing that way. Shame on that. Because to me, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's unfair and it's wrong. And so, to me, when I'm looking at some of these teams that got in, it's like, well, congratulations. I guess if you're a member of the SEC or you're a member of the Big Ten, you do no wrong. But it's leading into a conversation that we're going to have about moving forward here in college football, is that it's not even being hidden anymore. You got a potential 14-team format in college football where you want to give the SEC and Big Ten champion a bye, the only byes, every year, and give it to no other conference. So if Clemson is in the ACC and they go 12-0, and Alabama wins the SEC and they go 10-2, they get to sit and relax. That the SEC and the Big Ten will be the only conferences to sit and relax. The NCAA tournament, it used to be fun to watch the bracket reveal, wondering, did you get in? Did you not get in? Who got in? This year, when I watched it, it felt somewhat underwhelming of saying, okay, well, we know Purdue's going to get respect. And last year, you gave them a 1 seed, and look at what happened. This year, I don't anticipate Purdue going to the Final Four either. You know, you look at teams that got blown out in this whole what have you done for me lately, and it doesn't matter. And putting Kansas as a 4 seed at 22-10 is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because of the games that they've lost. And it's ridiculous I thought the committee cared about if you lose by massive margins or you win by massive margins. Kansas, within the last 2 weeks, lost a game by 30 points. And you make them a 4 seed. So you showed them respect, despite not playing that well. You know, when you look at the rankings and you look at where teams are stacked up, you know, UConn's 31-3. They come through the Big East. That's a team that should be a number 1 team in the country. The Big East has proven itself. UConn has proven itself. They won a championship last year. So having them be a number 1 seed, I can understand. Houston's 30-4. Houston has been tremendous, but here's my issue. Houston was good when they were in the American. But now that they're in the Big 12, people want to pay attention to them now. North Carolina is 27-7. North Carolina is not a 1 seed, but they were given a 1 seed. Good for you guys. They didn't win the ACC tournament. I thought they were going to be a 1 seed if they won the ACC tournament. I thought that was going to be the argument. They lost to Villanova this year, who was unranked. They lost to UConn at home. They lost to Kentucky. Those are 2 ranked teams. They lost at Georgia Tech, unranked. Clemson at home, unranked. At Syracuse, unranked. But that didn't count against North Carolina because North Carolina is protected. There needs to be a plan in place that gives the criteria. These are the things you need to do. Now, this year, a lot of teams lost. This year, there was a lot of NCAA tournament March Madness style games happening a week into the season, 2 weeks into the season. And Greg said, what about the incredible love for the Mountain West? Yeah. Why does the Mountain West have so much love? Is it because San Diego State had a good season last season? Because are all those teams San Diego State? Are they all the Aztecs? I mean, that's the confusion. The confusion is, why was the Mountain West, if you won in the Mountain West, it was a quad 1 win. Quad 1, quad 1, quad 1. Why was it a quad 1? What was so special? You know, let's take a look at, just for an example, let's take a look at Utah State. Okay? They finished atop the Mountain West. So let's look at Utah State. They lost to Bradley, an unranked team this year. They lost to New Mexico, an unranked team. They lost to San Diego State, who was unranked. They lost to Nevada, who was unranked. They lost to Colorado State, who was unranked. Then they lost to an unranked San Diego State again. Do you want to know how many ranked wins they had? So when San Diego State was ranked 19th, they beat them. They beat Colorado State when Colorado State was ranked 13th. And that's it. They didn't beat a single ranked team outside of their conference. And their conference was ranked high this year for whatever reason. So what did Utah State do to be in the seed that they're in and to be regarded as high as they're regarded? The Mountain West, so if you're in the ACC and you're Syracuse and you beat North Carolina, the committee doesn't care. But if you're in the Mountain West and you're Colorado State and you beat San Diego State, that's important. So essentially, the committee was saying the Mountain West to us is better than the ACC, so we're going to give the Mountain West a bunch of passes and we're going to punish the ACC. How is that fair? How is it fair to regard one conference as immaculate and decide that that conference is going to be the conference of darlings instead of watching them play? Who did they play non-conference? Syracuse used to get punished for not playing non-conference, like, tough games. When Kansas was playing Kentucky, Syracuse was playing Duquesne. And they got punished for that. And yeah, bid stealers happen. Bid stealers happen. When NC State wins, like the ACC tournament, bid stealers happen. But they still let in a bunch of teams that make you scratch your head. You know, Greg said, when's the last time a conference had a 1 seed, a 2 seed, a 3 seed, no other teams in the tournament? And that's the Big East issue. That's the Big East problem. That's what they're saying. The Big East is saying, okay, you think that our teams are good enough to be top seeds, but you don't think we're good enough to have more than just a few. Well, they had to make the spot for the Mountain West. They need to stop looking at this and saying what conferences are our favorites, and they need to just watch basketball. If you're not dedicating your committee to selecting basketball teams based on what they're doing, how they're doing it, how often they're doing it, who they're doing it against, the criteria for every conference is different. If the Mountain West goes 13-0 against the Quad 4, and somebody in the ACC goes 3-7 against Quad 1, that ACC team won't make it, but that Mountain West team is guaranteed. That makes no sense. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back with my father to talk about the ACC's grant of rights right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also, I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here with us every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It is always my honor to have you here on the show. And, of course, you are watching and listening around the world on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. You're also with us on live internet streaming radio on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So however you've connected with the show, we thank you so much for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. It is now time for me to do something that I've never done before, and I like making history on the show. And that is the fact that I'm welcoming my father, who has been on the show before, but this time we are here to talk about the legality of things with Ralph Tortora III, a.k.a. Pops, on the ACC grant of rights, Florida State, and Clemson. There's been a lot of things that have gone on here, folks, in these recent last few weeks and couple months here on the ACC's grant of rights. And what does that mean? What does it mean for the teams that are within it, that have signed it, these schools, these institutions? And now that we've had a lawsuit from Florida State and a lawsuit from Clemson, the question becomes, is there any validity of their argument to get out of this grant of rights agreement and to be able to move into another conference? So with that being said, my father, who practiced law for over 40 years, who retired recently, spent most of his life looking at contracts and looking at the legality of different things and different ways and different clauses of how you could get into something, get out of something. So I thought his expertise would be great to have here today as we speak about the ACC. Dad, how are you?
I'm good, but my experience with contracts has been essentially over the last 25 years in my position with the state. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but this contract is pretty clear on its face.
Yeah, and I wanted to get into that because I sent you over the ACC grant of rights yesterday, and we had the opportunity to take a look at it, and I wanted to see just kind of what you took away from it. Like you said, that it seems pretty clear what they're saying in the grant of rights. I'd love to get your thoughts on what you read from the ACC grant of rights and what that clarity is in your opinion.
On a very basic level, what the agreement says is, look, you're a member of the ACC. You're giving the ACC the right to negotiate television rights on your behalf with ESPN. And pursuant to that grant of rights, as long as you're a member to this contract, and when you sign the contract, there's a cutoff date, there's an expiration date for this contract. Initially, it was 2027, and now it looks from the terms of the challenges by FSU and Clemson that they're saying that the contract has been extended to 2036. And it says very clearly that if you're a member, ACC will negotiate your rights with ESPN, and even if you leave the ACC still owns all of your television rights, and you're prohibited from basically negotiating any other type of contract with any other conference for those television rights, which makes you unwantable, undesirable for any other conference.
Yeah, and like you said in this ACC grant of rights, making things very clear of saying that here are the teams, here are the schools that are within us, calling them the current members, and then the members that were coming in, the accepted members, which included Pittsburgh and Louisville and Syracuse and Notre Dame when they were bringing in membership, and then saying any other member after that, those members that they agreed upon after that fact, that those members would be within this contract. I have the contract up here in the studio right now, and I want to kind of look through some specifics of it. One of the pieces here, the grant of rights, it says each of the member institutions hereby irrevocably and exclusively grant to the conference during the term as defined below all rights, the rights necessary for the conference to perform the contractual obligations of the conference expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement, regardless of whether such member institution remains a member, like you stated, of the conference during the entirety of the term and agrees to satisfy and perform all contractual obligations of a member institution during the term that are expressly set forth in the ESPN agreement. The grant of rights pursuant to this, paragraph 1, includes without limitation the rights to produce and distribute all events of such member institution that are subject to the ESPN agreement, subject to paragraph 7 hereof, the right to authorize access to such member institutions' facilities for the purpose set forth in and pursuant to the ESPN agreement, the right of the conference or its designee to create and to own a copyright of such member institution called the works, with such rights being at least coextensive with 17 U.S.C. 411C and the present assignment of the entire right, title, and interest in the works that are created under the ESPN agreement. Notwithstanding any other provisions of this paragraph, the grant of rights pursuant to this paragraph 1 shall not include any rights of a particular member institution to sports as to which the conference and such member institution have agreed as of the date of such member institution's execution of this agreement or adjoinder thereto, that such member institution will not participate as a member of the conference. The grant of rights pursuant to this paragraph 1 shall remain subject to the right to produce and distribute by means of specified media those events of such member institution during the term which are reserved to the conference and the member institution under the ESPN agreement, and which may be exercised as permitted by the ESPN agreement and with accordance with conference policy. Each member institution will cause any affiliated entity which has previously been granted any interest in the rights to grant such interest to the conference to the extent necessary to allow the member institution to fully perform all of its obligations under this agreement and provide the conference with the rights contemplated hereby. So what it sounds like is each of these member institutions, which there are 15 in the ACC, have made the agreement to irrevocably and exclusively give their rights to the ACC, and that even if they were to leave, as we spoke about, those rights stay with the ACC, and they've even granted the ACC the copyright to have in any of these works. So what they've essentially done from now through 2036 is each member institution has said that we have no right to revoke anything from the ACC when it comes to the distribution, the creation and distribution of any content for our schools in the sports world under this agreement with ESPN, and that we don't even own the copyright to it. The ACC has the right to take all of this, distribute it, create it, produce it with ESPN, and then keep it in a copyright and do what they wish with that. I mean, essentially, Dad, what it sounds like is each of these 15 member institutions have told the ACC, you have all of this and we have no control. And even if we leave, you still have rights to it. So if we left the conference, we would still not have rights to our own distribution.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I'm looking at other pieces of this, and I was looking at this last night as well. There's more that goes into the copyright itself and, you know, other things that are in this, the warranties and the covenants and whatnot. But I'm trying to find within this what a lawsuit would do in order to free any of these institutions. Do you believe that, based on what you've read and based on practicing law for over 40 years, and like you said, 25 years of reading through contracts, is there any legal loopholes that you see in the ACC grant of rights that an institution could use to find their way out?
Well, let's look at what FSU is claiming.
Okay.
Under their legal claims, I see 4. Restraint of trade. That means that FSU is saying, look, by holding us to this contract, you're prohibiting us from bettering our school financially.
Okay.
That's legal claim number 1. Number 2, breach of contract. What FSU is claiming that the ACC, in its negotiations with the ESPN, has failed to negotiate a contract that is fair to the members. And it says failure to perform. It's failed to generate more income under this agreement that is potentially out there. The ACC just upped its contract with ESPN to 2036 with the same deal, the same amount of money for each member school until the year 2036, which is about $33 million a year for each school. And that's in Tier 1 payments. In actual contract payments, the SEC has negotiated a contract which allows each school to receive $51.3 million a year. The Big Ten, it's anywhere between $80 and $100 million per year, and the ACC is down to $39.4 million per year. So FSU and Clemson make the same claim with respect to their inability to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC schools because of their inability to generate more income. So they can't make their programs any better because they have less income. They can't make their school any better because they have less income. And potentially they're not getting the kind of players that they need to draw because the other schools have more money to play with to draw players. And the final argument that FSU makes under their legal claims is the legality of the withdrawal penalties. They say they're just draconian. That withdrawal fee is $140 million, and if you add into that all of their lost earnings from their inability to have their schools covered under these other conferences, is going to be about close to $1 billion a year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at FSU's amended, Florida State University's amended ACC complaint, and I you're going through these different pieces and whatnot. There's some other things that have been brought up that I'm staring at here, but do you think that within this contract that you read, the ACC grant of rights, that Florida State or Clemson or any of the 15 member institutions, that they can challenge the legality of the ACC grant of rights, challenge its function or its continue to function or continue to exist if they can prove that their school is losing money because of it, or that their school is not able to have the resources of some other schools or some other conferences they feel are better off? Could you go to, if you're Florida State and Clemson, do you think that there is actually a legal, substantive issue here that they can go to a judge and say, our institution is suffering under this agreement. Do you think that there's something to that?
Anything is possible, in terms of bringing a lawsuit. Can they substantiate their legal claims? Can they say that there's been a breach of contract? Okay, so the contract is null and void, so then all of the clauses in the contract are null and void and they're therefore unenforceable. Can they prove that? Maybe. Can they prove that under the contract that the ACC's failed to perform its conditions under the contract, possibly by showing the discrepancy in the money earned by the other conferences and the failure by the ACC to negotiate any better terms and monetary payments, and extending those same monetary payments to the year 2036. It sounds like a pretty strong point. Are the withdrawal penalties draconian and severe? Possibly. The ACC's budget is about $30 million a year. The penalties are $140 million, so it's better than 3 times the budget of the ACC that they would be compensated by a team leaving, plus the income generated by the agreement with ESPN. So, yeah, I would say they've got some claims here. Whether they're successful or not remains to be seen. But yeah,
there's something here, and once again, speaking with my father, Ralph Tortora III, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I wanted to seek somebody who has had the experience of working in the world of law for many years, 40 plus years. My dad working as a lawyer and looking at different things over time in different areas, and like you said, 25 years and looking at contracts. I want to go to something that is in the amended complaint from Florida State that says it's a few pages in here. It's on page 7 of 59 in the amended complaint. It says the 2010 ESPN agreement, Raycom partnership, and new withdrawal penalties. And it starts with number 29. It says, in 1997, the ACC named as its commissioner John Swofford, who held the position until 2021. Swofford was replaced as commissioner by Jim Phillips, who had for the previous 13 years overseen the Northwestern University football program as athletic director. In 2005, the ACC extended a single invitation for a school to join the ACC as a new member. That invitation was extended to Boston College University. At the time, Swofford's son, Chad Swofford, was working in the Boston College athletic department. In 2007, Chad Swofford left Boston College to take a position as Director of Business Development at Raycom Sports, located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Raycom Sports had for decades been providing extensive media services to the two main college athletic conferences of the South, namely the SEC and the ACC. In 2008, Raycom Sports suffered a serious financial setback, and then it gives that information here. Then it says, though just recently employed by Raycom Sports, Chad Swofford was spared in the employee cut. Over the next 2 years, under its expiring media contract with the ACC, about 80% of Raycom's annual revenue came from its business with the ACC. As of 2010, the survival of Raycom Sports hinged on its 31-year relationship with the ACC. Without the ACC, Raycom's future would be bleak. CEO Ken Haynes felt the pressure, as did his 50 employees, most of whom described it as a tense 2 years that led up to the ACC talks. So, looking at all of this, it looks like FSU is trying to make a statement here that the ACC hires John Swofford. John Swofford, as the ACC commissioner, extends an invitation for Boston College to leave the Big East and join the ACC when his son was working in the athletic department, and then his son went over to Raycom, and the ACC kept their deal with Raycom and helped Raycom through one of its biggest economical moments in their history. So what do you think to that effect of this? Because the FSU felt the need to put this in here and to have the conversation that John Swofford's son was at Boston College when Boston College got an offer to join the ACC, and then he left there, and his son went to Raycom, and the ACC has continued to work with Raycom. It seems like FSU is insinuating here that there's some preferential treatment going on and maybe trying to use this as an argument. Could this be a loophole?
It's the old throw everything into the lawsuit, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Is it an argument? Well, I guess if you're saying they mismanaged and they mismanaged because of preferential treatment to other business entities that may not have been qualified to perform the services required by the ACC, and that would facilitate the members financially. Yeah, it seems like a stretch to me.
Yeah, it's because like you talked about, it seems like Florida State is trying to give any reason whatsoever to get out of this agreement. Like I said, the amended agreement from Florida State against the ACC or the amended complaint, not the amended agreement. The amended complaint is 59 pages long. I'm looking at it here in the studio, and Clemson yesterday came out with theirs. So let's take a look at some of the verbiage here with Clemson and some of the moves here. So in a filing in the Court of Common Pleas in Pickens County, South Carolina, Clemson University calls into question the ACC's grant of rights and its exit fees, calling the withdrawal penalty, quote, unconscionable and, quote, unenforceable. It also states that the ACC's view that the league's grant of media rights would allow the league to own Clemson's media rights after it left the league, a, quote, nonsensical reading, wrong, and inconsistent with the plain language of that agreement, end quote. You and I have read the grant of rights, and we've seen with the ACC grant of rights that they said, hey, you're going to give us these rights. We're going to work with ESPN. We're going to distribute them the way that we see fit. You're going to allow us a copyright of these, and we can do whatever we want to do with what we create with ESPN. We can cut it up. We can use it in different ways. We can use it in different things, but these are all owned by us. Clemson is saying, hey, if we leave the conference, you keeping our rights is nonsensical, it's wrong, and it's inconsistent with the plain language of the agreement. But I'm looking at the ACC grant of rights, which Clemson signed, we're going to give you our rights irrevocably. So does Clemson have any validity to their argument of saying it's nonsensical that if we leave, you still own our rights? Because they did sign a contract that says if we leave, you still own our rights.
Well, they're saying at this point, because they want to make a move to make more money, that it's ambiguous and and being misinterpreted by the ACC. I think that argument falls on its face. It's pretty clear what they agreed to in the grant of rights. Other argument would be that an equities argument, that if you hold us to this agreement, we're being financially penalized in our ability to foster a better program athletically and to better our institution. We're being prohibited to do so by our inability to go to another conference, because no other conference is going to pick them up if they don't pick up their video rights, their television rights.
And I mean, I guess looking at all of this, I would have said to Clemson and to Florida State and to anybody in the ACC, why would you sign your life away? I mean, the reality of being in a conference that says we own your rights within this conference, and if you leave this conference before 2036, we will continue to own your rights. So we will cripple you financially if you leave, which I think was the whole point, because there's been so much realignment and because there has been this extreme lack of keeping your word and lack of loyalty, that the ACC created this grant of rights to protect itself, at least for a while, from having to lose any of its membership. And in creating this grant of rights, it was created for the sole, for me, it was created, on the ACC side, that from now through 2036, to provide for them some continuity and not have them go through what other conferences have gone through, which is the constant need to fill spots like the American Athletic Conference. The commissioner, the statement came out from the ACC, which included Jim Ryan, who is the board of directors chair of the ACC, as well as Commissioner Jim Phillips. And that actually came to us via email, us media that cover the ACC. It says, quote, Clemson, along with all ACC members, voluntarily signed and re-signed the 2013 and 2016 grant of rights, which is binding through 2036. In addition, Clemson agreed to the process and procedures for withdrawal. The conference's legal counsel will vigorously enforce the agreement and bylaws in the best interests of the ACC's current and incoming members. End quote. So, Clemson has made clear that the current ACC television contract, which lags behind the SEC and Big Ten new deals, is an inhibitor to Clemson competing at the highest level. Clemson took part in 6 college football playoffs and won national titles in 2016 and 2018. The suit claims, quote, the ACC's actions interfere with Clemson's free exercise of its rights and are fatally detrimental to Clemson's efforts to ensure that its athletic programs can continue to compete at the highest level, which is critically important to Clemson even beyond athletics. But I keep coming back to this with them saying in their suit, we don't have the free exercise of rights. I keep coming back to the fact that they gave those up. They don't have the free exercise of them because they gave up the freedom of their rights to the ACC, unless I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. But what's implied in the contract is that the ACC is going to make its best efforts for its members to generate the highest financial return for each team. And the argument that Clemson and FSU are making is that they haven't done that the ACC, by signing a contract extension with ESPN until 2036 at the same amount of money that's being paid out now, is not performing to the ACC's obligations under the contract. So yes, the language in the grant of rights is pretty clear on its face. The argument that's being made is, well, okay, but you as the ACC are obligated to work on our behalf. We came to you, we joined the ACC with the understanding that you were going to work to the benefit of the members, and you haven't done so. Negotiating a contract extending to 2036 with no increase in financial reward is not working for the benefits of the members. So you have violated the contract, your terms, your obligations under the contract. We came and we surrendered certain rights to you, but you also agreed to perform certain things on our behalf, and you're not doing that. So that's the argument that FSU and Clemson is making. Yeah, the language is clear, but they haven't performed under the contract. And by they're not performing under the contract, and they're requiring us to remain under this contract that they've breached, and our only exit from this contract is to pay a withdrawal fee and then to suffer until 2036 with not having the ability to negotiate those television rights with a new conference prohibits us.
Yeah.
we're being injured by their failure to work progressively and and for our betterment. That's the argument that they're making. That's a pretty strong argument when you look at the fact that the contract negotiated with ESPN goes into 2036 with no increase in benefits.
Well, and the thing is when we're looking at this, the ACC, there was a plan of increase that I was looking at here of how the money was supposed to go up over time to each team within the conference, within the ACC's grant of rights. But this is all coming at a time where the Big Ten and the SEC are making substantially more money. The SEC generated $852.5 million of revenue during the 2023 fiscal year, and it said that it would distribute about $741 million to its 14 schools, an average of $51.3 million per school after excluding bowl expenses. The Big Ten, most recent available data, was $846 million in revenue for the fiscal year ending in June 2022. A 7-year media rights agreement that was just struck recently with Fox, CBS, and NBC in August of 2022 is set to bring in more than $7 billion. The league was projected to eventually distribute $80 million to $100 million per year to each of its members. Now, the ACC's average distribution to its 14 full members, because Notre Dame is not a full member, they're a member for all but football. So the ACC's average distribution to its 14 full member institutions did increase 9.7% to $39.4 million in 2021-22, which was the most recent data. Those don't include the new college football playoff numbers. The lawsuit projects a revenue gap of $30 million per institution per year, which Clemson sums up, striking at the heart of the lawsuit, says, quote, as the revenue gap widens over the coming year, Clemson will fall behind its peer institutions, end quote. So essentially, because the SEC and the Big Ten have signed new deals and have gained more money from those deals, they are now looking at the ACC saying, okay, well, yeah, we went up 9.7%, but it's not enough. So there has been an increase of money in the ACC, but the increase of money is still a gap that they're seeing. So to say each of our member institutions gets $39.4 million as of 2022, I believe. So when you look at that and say that you're getting $39.4 million to each ACC institution, but the SEC is getting 51.3 and the Big Ten is going to get 80 to 100 million. Essentially, the ACC grant of rights and whatever the ACC is doing to increase the revenue, 9.7% would be a nice increase on most things, right? You tell a business that they're increasing 10%, you're going to increase somebody's salary by 10%, but whatever the increases are in the ACC are still lagging behind the SEC and the Big Ten. So it seems like the arguments of Clemson University and Florida State University are, especially when it comes to college football, which is the biggest generator for the conference, we are the two entities that are bringing the most money to the conference, and we're seeing other conferences make $50 million, $80 million to $100 million per year. We're only making 39.4. So staying in your conference is going to hinder our ability to keep up with the Georgias and the LSUs and the Floridas and the Alabamas of the SEC and the Michigans and the Ohio States and the Penn States of the Big Ten. So you're going to nationally hurt us as a school because your increases monetarily from year to year are, even though they're increasing, even though they're not staying the same, it's nowhere near enough compared to other conferences.
Right. It's all about the money. College sports is down to it's all about the money. So when you're the two biggest draws in your conference, Florida State and Clemson, you're the ones that are basically making the money for the rest of the schools, and everybody's receiving equal treatment. Even the schools that really can't generate a substantial amount of money. So and as long as they stay in that conference, they're going to be the breadwinners paying for everybody else, and they don't want to be that anymore.
Yeah,
they want to be able to move up. They want to be able to have the money to spend, and they want to be able to compete in an arena where it's more and more likely there's going to be 8 to 10 schools that are going to be competing every year in the playoffs consistently. They want to be part of that group.
Well, and I think what's happening is something that I prognosticated over 2 years ago, which was the fact that my belief was the SEC. Well, actually, it dates farther back than that, and ironically, it dates back to the ACC. So let me paint a little picture for everybody here. More than 5 years ago, I sat in Brooklyn with John Swofford when he was still the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference, a.k.a. the ACC. When we sat and we spoke, I talked to him about the fact that 5 conferences had taken a legal move with the ACC, with the NCAA, to be called autonomous conferences. And autonomy, by definition, means self-governing. And essentially, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC declared themselves to be paired together, these 5 conferences, in Division I, and declared themselves legally to be an autonomy group. And this autonomy group would have a different set of rules, different set of perks, and different set of standards than the other conferences in Division I. When I sat with John Swofford, I said, well, John, autonomy means self-governing. So are you essentially saying that at a certain point or any point that these 5 conferences could leave the NCAA because legally they're somehow in the NCAA but also self-governing? And he said, well, it's not out of the realm of possibility, not right now, but it's not that we haven't discussed it. Fast forward, I talked to him about it again. He echoed the sentiments that it's not impossible. Then he retires as the ACC commissioner in 2021, and around this COVID time, I stated that when Oklahoma and Texas made the decision to leave the Big 12 for the SEC, that the SEC, in my opinion, would look to add 2 to 4 more institutions and would form its own league, separate from the NCAA, and they would have their own world that they live in. In the time of this going on, and before that time, around that time, we saw Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, make a statement that he has no control over college football, that the president of the NCAA has no control over NCAA football. And that made me pause. Because if you have because he had essentially stated during COVID, and I'm going to give you, an abbreviated of his quote here and, paraphrase, but he was speaking on the fact of, I cannot tell a league or conference if they're going to play, and I can't tell an institution, because at the time, some conferences were saying we're going to play football, other conferences were saying it's not safe, and then some institutions within conferences said, if our conference plays, we're not going to play. And then they were all trying to figure this out. When somebody in a conference wanted to play as an institution, so if the conference wasn't playing but the institution wanted to play, or the conference was playing and the institution didn't want to play, he said, I have no control over that. I can't tell a conference or an institution what to do. Essentially, he was the boss of nothing. And he has since stepped down. So all of these things going on, I said, okay, well, I feel like the SEC, especially if college football is not governed by the NCAA, I feel that the SEC, it's already self-governing, it's already autonomous. They already have a ton of member institutions. They're adding 2 more to make 16. And these member institutions, a lot of them in the South, make a lot of money. They vie for championships, and they could easily, probably financially, afford to go off on their own. Well, after that happened, the Big Ten decided to add USC and UCLA from the West Coast, which makes no geographical sense with the Big Ten. It's over 2,000 miles between their member schools, for the most part, and the West Coast. Then they decided to add Oregon and Washington, and I looked at a map And last year I put a map together. I think it was over a year ago, but last year I put a map together of realignment. The map showed that the Big Ten had the Midwest and the Northeast. The SEC had the Southern Middle and the Southeast. With the Big Ten taking 4 teams on the West Coast, they were going coast to coast, and the only areas that they weren't working in were the states that haven't produced any type of national champion in football in recent history. So I stated, I believe the SEC, once again, will form its own league, but my caveat is, I believe that there is another option. The other option is that the Big Ten could go with the SEC, and because they have all of these products, they could form their own league where the SEC would have a playoff, the Big Ten would have a playoff, and their champions would play each other for the national championship. And my exact statement on the 3 other schools was Notre Dame, Clemson, and Florida State. Notre Dame is in the ACC for every sport, except for football, which they're independent, and Clemson and FSU are full members of the ACC. My statement was Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten because geographically that makes more sense. Clemson and Florida State go to the SEC so that they can keep their rivalries, Clemson, South Carolina, and Florida, Florida State. And once they leave, every major commodity in college football would be in those 2 conferences of the SEC and the Big Ten. So if the SEC and the Big Ten formed their own league, most people would consider their champion to be the national champion because all of the major products would be there. What essentially sounds like it's happening is exactly what I talked about. It sounds like Clemson and Florida State want out because Clemson and Florida State see where things are going. They see where the money is, but they also can understand, I think what I've seen, arguably, that the SEC and the Big Ten are very close to forming their own league. And if people don't believe that to be true, then answer me the question why there was allegedly a college football playoff format where there was going to be 14 teams instead of 12, and the SEC and the Big Ten would always have the byes. Nobody else would. So 14 teams, 2 byes, declared for the SEC and the Big Ten, and everybody else would have to play through, and the SEC and the Big Ten would have an unfair advantage to automatically advance out of the first round every year, regardless of record, regardless of team, regardless of schedule. So, Dad, what it essentially looks like to me is that all of these predictions over many years are coming true, and that Clemson and Florida State are realizing that getting out of the ACC and joining the SEC or Big Ten is going to put them in a situation where they will be a part of the future of college football, which will eventually detach itself from the rest of the conferences.
Sure looks like it.
So my final question to you would be, if you are the commissioner of the ACC, if you're Jim Phillips and you know that these schools don't want to be here, you know that they're going to lock you up in lawsuits and try and bleed you dry in court, and you know that they're essentially, arguably, sitting ducks or will be sitting ducks, if legally written, it makes sense that whether they like it or not, they're stuck. But then they're going to argue and say, well, you raised us money, but you didn't raise us enough money, and look at everything else that's going on. I just find it difficult to say to a business, well, we signed to work with you, but this other business is getting their clients more money, so we want to go with them. You signed to work with this business, and what another business is doing is all well and good, but you made a contract with the business that you're with. In the world we live in today, your signature on a piece of paper is supposed to have value. It's supposed to legally bind you and protect the business that you're signing with. So I guess my question to you is, if this is going to be the situation and this is what it's going to look like, and they're going to be fighting a front in Clemson and they're going to be fighting a front at Florida State, does Jim Phillips look at both of these being his 2 biggest commodities in college football, and does he just ask for enough money to say, like, legally we could fight you, legally I think we could win? Or does he look at this and say, it's 2024, Are we going to spend the next 12 years hating each other? If you were Jim Phillips, what would you do at this point if you know that these institutions have lawfully declared that they want out?
Well, I'm going to look at the financial viability of the ACC if these two teams are gone. And is that impact greater than what I might be able to garner from each of these two schools with a buyout of the contract? And my conclusion, not knowing what the numbers are going to roll out to, is it's an ungiven. But these two teams leave the ACC. The ACC is basically, football-wise, is going to be nothing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it sounds pretty clear. The ACC is saying we can't survive without, I mean, they're not saying it, but I think behind closed doors, the reality is the ACC cannot survive without these schools as far as national exposure. If they were to lose them, they're probably going to lose more money for the remaining institutions that they have. So I think for the ACC, they know they can't lose Clemson and Florida State. And then on Clemson and Florida State side, they know that the ACC can't lose them. So it's all parties understanding that Clemson and Florida State can't leave, because that will punch the ACC in a way that might keep them from being nationally recognizable again. And at the same time, it's, we're looking at the legal side of it, and we're saying, can you argue that granting your media rights to somebody even after you leave a conference and crippling your institution, if that's fair, if that's legal, if it's right, if it's unconscionable or whatever they want to call it? But at the same time, I would look at Clemson and Florida State and say, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but you signed it. You can say that it's wrong, but you signed it. You could say it doesn't make sense, but you signed it. You can say that your media rights, if you're in another conference, makes absolutely no sense to still belong to the conference you left, but you signed it. So I think what this is going to ultimately come down to is the ACC sitting down with Clemson and Florida State and either telling them, tough luck, let's fight in court and we'll fight you for years, or the ACC just getting a ridiculous amount of money to ultimately help them in the now. But the amount of money, this is what it looks, I mean, legally it looks like Clemson and Florida State have an uphill battle. But on the other side of it, I mean, because they would have to prove, well, we're losing this and we're losing that and this happened, or with Cal and Stanford joining that and SMU joining that somehow, this changed the agreement. But it seems like a pretty simple contract. I think what it comes down to is the reality that no matter how much money they get from Clemson and Florida State, long term, the ACC will never be able to recover from this.
You're right, but you're losing sight of this fact. The contract is there's obligations on both sides, and both Florida State and Clemson have pretty good arguments that the ACC is not lived up to their part of the bargain. That they haven't done what they agreed to do, and was to work for the best efforts of the members of this conference.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you got the plain language of the contract with respect to the granting of rights. Okay, that's fine. And if you're going to leave, this is what's going to happen. Okay, that's fine. But we're saying the reason why we're leaving is because you haven't done your part of the bargain. You haven't worked in the best interest of the members. And therefore, we shouldn't be held under the covenants of this agreement to buy the buyout, the withdrawal fee, and the penalty of losing our television rights. that you're gonna hold those rights until the year 2036, because essentially, if FSU and Clemson don't win this lawsuit, then they're stuck.
Yeah.
Okay? If they do win this lawsuit, and the contract is declared null and void, and they're not held to any of the provisions, either of the withdrawal fees or of the television rights, then they're going to be able to negotiate with either the Big Ten or the SEC for admittance into those conferences.
Yeah,
They either have to win the lawsuit, or the ACC is going to have to agree to certain terms to let them out of the contract that are not going to be so prohibitive that Clemson and Florida State stay within the ACC.
Can a judge look at this and say, despite the fact that you signed it, joining another conference and still owing your rights to the conference that you left is not legal or not? I mean, can a judge look at this and say, even though you signed this language, this verbiage, it's not constitutional, it's not correct, it's not? I mean, can they say that it goes against a statute or something in that case to say, like, you can't continue to give your rights to a place that you're no longer doing business with? I mean, can a judge essentially say that?
Florida State and Clemson are no good to any other conference unless they can take those television rights with them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the judge is either going to say the contract is good and you're obligated to the agreement that you made, and you have to stay here, and if you want to withdraw, go ahead, but nobody's going to buy you. Nobody's going to pick you up. Or the judge can say, no, ACC, you haven't lived up to your side of the bargain. We're going to declare the contract null and void. And they can negotiate some kind of financial resolution between the ACC and Florida State and FSU. That could be money. That could be a limited retention of the television rights by the ACC. Could be a combination of things.
So essentially, the last note that I have here is there's 14 full members. Notre Dame also signs it as a member of everything except for football. If Clemson and or Florida State wins their lawsuit, then the ACC grant of rights, I would imagine, for any institution would now be deemed invalid. So if Clemson wins their case, if Florida State wins their case, then does that mean that Syracuse does not have to go to court and has the right to look at the ACC and say, well, you know, this has been proven that it's not irrevocable. This has been proven that we don't owe you this. Essentially what I'm saying is the ripple effect of Clemson and or Florida State winning their lawsuit going to affect the rest of the full members in allowing a Syracuse to freely go find somewhere else, or a Boston College. If one of these schools wins, is it essentially, if the judge determines that the ACC grant of rights, if the ACC wasn't upholding one of the things that they promised, does that not allow a free-for-all for every institution that's part of the ACC grant of rights?
No, it gives them an argument because, the Clemson lawsuit and the Florida lawsuit have been brought in different jurisdictions and in different states. So the ruling by one state court judge is not precedent for another state. So those 14 other members would have to bring their own action in their own jurisdictions. They could argue, well, this is what the judge did in Florida, and this is what the judge did in Clemson.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's no. And why would these other schools leave the ACC? Who's going to want them? Number one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so essentially you're bound by state law. So if Clemson wins in the state of South Carolina, that does not guarantee that Florida State would win in the state of Florida.
Correct.
A lot of things to think about and chew on, people. As always, I appreciate the expertise and the conversation. My father being here with me today, Ralph Tortora III, who spent over 40 years as a lawyer going through and fighting the good fight, and as he says, wearing the white hat. So, Dad, thank you for taking a look at these legal documents and giving us some legal analysis that goes into your expertise of what you've studied over the years. So I do appreciate that very much so. And it just sounds like we are in for a little bit of a bumpy ride with the ACC, but I appreciate you taking some time.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya. So once again, wanted to have my dad on the air here because I was thinking about that. And I was like, if we're going to talk about the legality of the ACC grant of rights, I'm the son of a lawyer. I could call any lawyer and say, hey, let's have a conversation. But why not respect my dad for his 44 years of being a lawyer and give him the opportunity to sit here and have these conversations? And I'm grateful that he did. I'm grateful that he went and looked up this information. And him and I have spent time on this. And he obviously has shown you today he spent a lot of time going through this information and trying to see what areas Clemson and Florida State have to argue in the ACC grant of rights. We're going to take our final step aside. We'll wrap up the show right after this. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com. Your one-stop sports shop is where you can find all of our awesome outlets. So you're with us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. And if you go to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, every one of these live feeds is there for you and clickable from our main site of wakeupcalldt.com. So make sure you head out there to our website on any one of your devices, and you can get all of our feeds for the live show Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also find all of our articles and all of the partners that we work with and all of the things that we get to do with the fantastic companies in Central and Upstate New York. You'll also find the links to all of our wonderful avenues to listen to the show: Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. I talk about those incredible partners. You can visit them in Central and Upstate New York. We're going to Carvel DeWitt today. You can get a buy one, get one of My Very Own Sundae. Make sure you go out and try it today. My Sundae, the DT Dolphin, in honor of the LeMoyne College Dolphins. You heard from the softball team today. Go and get a buy one, get one every Wednesday of the DT Dolphin. The DT Dolphin is available 7 days a week exclusively at Carvel DeWitt on 4322 East Genesee Street in DeWitt, New York. And on Wednesdays, you can get a buy one, get one of the DT Dolphin, mint chocolate chip ice cream with hot fudge, whipped cream, and a cherry, green and gold sprinkles, and a chocolate dolphin jumping out of your whipped cream, only at Carvel DeWitt. The Wildcat Sports Pub, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, GG Cards and Breaks, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Great Lakes Honda City, and Mother's Cupboard, where you can go and get yourself the Cuse McMother. The Cuse McMother, my signature sandwich, available 7 days a week at Syracuse Staple Restaurant, Mother's Cupboard. In the words of owner Pete Green, he said, if you haven't been to Mother's Cupboard, you're probably from out of town. Make your way over to Mother's Cupboard, 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York. See co-owners Pete, Amy, and the entire team working tirelessly to create such an awesome dining experience that we've had here in Syracuse for many years. The Cuse McMother, bacon, egg, and cheese inside of 2 pieces of French toast. Pick it up and eat it like a sandwich. Cut it up and have it with some syrup. And you can get that any day of the week from 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. We're also proud to be the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your LeMoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find us during Dolphin time, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern time, like today. And you have the opportunity the first and third Wednesday to have AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive dives into stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. Find all of our content, including our conversation with Laura Bennett and Mckenzie Bergdoll of the LeMoyne softball team, on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, click subscribe and the notification bell. We'll look for the LeMoyne playlist on our YouTube channel. You can also find the Dolphins by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab on wakeupcalldt.com. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, and as always, fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You will find your Bobcats every single month, with student athletes, coaches, and administration joining the show throughout the year to tell the stories of the Bobcats, including men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and esports. Make sure that you don't miss a moment by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, click subscribe and the notification bell, and find the BSC Syracuse playlist. You can also find the Bobcats on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab on wakeupcalldt.com. The Bobcat Buzz, giving you a buzz about so many things, all that news, right? The Bobcat Buzz bringing you the awesome stories and from just an incredible, unique, and special gem in Syracuse, New York, right on James Street, the Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, with wonderful people telling incredible stories from a unique perspective. The Bobcat Buzz. Don't miss a moment. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And as always, go Bobcat Nation. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You will find the Bearcats Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, a.k.a. Bearcat Time, happening every single week exclusively on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. The Binghamton University Bearcats just added 2 more specials to Bearcat Time in what we call the Bearcat Break Room. In my conversation with head baseball coach of Binghamton University, Tim Sinicki, as well as the head softball coach at Binghamton University, Jess Bump. You can see those specials on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, including my Moments with Marshall, which is my segment with Gene Marshall, the athletics director of Binghamton University. Every single month, we will feature Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, multiple episodes throughout the month on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time of the Bearcat Break Room with student athletes, coaches, and administration. And once a month, one of those Tuesdays will be declared the Moments with Marshall Day, where during Bearcat Time, I will sit down with Gene Marshall, athletics director of Binghamton University, to go behind the scenes of the school and the athletic department. Find all of our content on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt by subscribing and hitting the notification bell. You also find the Binghamton University playlist on our YouTube channel. You can find the Bearcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab on wakeupcalldt.com. For more information, go to bubearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', big time thanks to our guests for the Dolphin Dive today and our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with the LeMoyne College Dolphins. Thank you to Laura Bennett, pitcher, as well as Mckenzie Bergdoll, first baseman of the LeMoyne Dolphins softball program. Big thanks to my dad for going to the legal side of the ACC grant of rights and those lawsuits that have been put forward by Florida State University and Clemson University. I wanted to have somebody who had a lot of experience in law. My dad has had over 40 years, and we were talking about it last night, and I thought to myself, I have a lawyer that I've known my entire life. Why not ask him about the legal side of the ACC grant of rights? So I want to thank my dad in making some really cool history here on the show. Find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Enjoy the First Four's continuation with 2 more play-in games tonight. Congratulations to Wagner and Colorado State on winning the first games of the Men's Division I NCAA tournament for 2024, and I'll talk with you all soon. God bless. No stress. Do your best. Have a fantastic day. And know that no matter what anybody says or does, you matter, you count, you're beautiful, you're special, and every dream that you have, you should chase, believe in, trust God, and be the best you can be. You will not fail by being you. So be beautifully you.